So part two is how do you make a living at teaching? And what you really need to do is be a memorable teacher. You need to be someone that people are going to, one, they're going to resonate and connect with the audience. Two, they're going to show and not tell. You'll just forget somebody that just kind of tells you or talks at you. And then three, there's got to be some kind of emotional response, and I'll talk about each of these three individually. So first of all, one, resonate or connect with the audience. Many future teachers imagine themselves kind of at the front of the classroom. The students in the audience are, their hands raised, they're excited to answer a question, and they're going to leave the classroom each day. Job well done. People have learned, all these things have happened. But instead, on their first day, a lot of times they see the tops of students' heads looking down at their smartphones, empty desks, students who don't want to come to class, and then disinterested look at those students who just want to get over with. And it's kind of a gut punch to have others not to love the subject the teacher does. So a teacher has to bring their own energy, sure, but they have to take an interest in what and how the students want to learn and then help them one-on-one. So how's that possible? Well, there can be dozens of students, hundreds of students in a classroom or auditorium, or even with precepting, there's other responsibilities and there's not necessarily a ton of time to get to the student. So when a student struggles with an issue, it's often that many others have had the same issue. So you'll hear a veteran teacher say, this is a tricky part, or you may have gone down this road instead of this one. That's a common misunderstanding I want to address. For example, a low thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH level, means hyperthyroidism. You would think low and hypo would go together, whereas a high TSH means hypothyroidism. It's counterintuitive. It's a speed bump. You got to kind of think about it, wrap your hand around it, maybe draw a picture so that you can think, okay, well, if the hormone to stimulate something is very high, that means that it's not really working and it's not stimulating it. So the actual thyroid level must be low, and kind of get your head wrapped around it. So those speed bumps are important because as these pearls become second nature and you keep adding them, just as the student's about to hit a speed bump, the teacher lets them know it's there, but they should all slow down, get over the speed bump, then move on. And so the teacher doesn't necessarily answer the question, but they provides a strategy to buoy them through the challenge. And that is really the way that you make a connection. At the moment that someone is going to have a difficulty, you are there to help them. And even better, you recognize this is going to be a difficulty. You show some empathy and compassion and help them through it. The second is the show and don't tell the lesson. So when you're standing up in front or speaking on a call, there's always an opportunity to show and not tell. Make sure to use images. Like TLDRpharmacy.com is great at this to break up the seriousness. Their whole name, TLDR, Too Long Didn't Read, was basically saying, okay, well, it's a lot of work to read a journal article. There's few pictures and maybe there's a couple graphs and things like that. And so they added kind of certainly a summary of the article itself or the topic itself, but then they always add these memes that are fantastic, and sometimes you just scroll through to get the memes first and then you actually read through it. So they do a really good job of that. Some people think image first. One of my daughters will write images and then tell the story from the images, and then the other one will write only words, and then the other one will do kind of a pictures and words. Three different ways to approach it, but those that think image first generally don't have a problem. People really connect with that. They don't put too much writing on it if you're talking about PowerPoint or something like that. But if students have never seen what you're trying to talk about, you need a picture. Ahmed, who is now a Pharm.D and a current resident of Wisconsin, made a great video showing that although he's more dynamic in person when you actually hear him and see him present, he's been a Toastmaster for a heck of a long time, you can see the way he incorporates show, don't tell in his work. There's a video that has about 4,000 views. It's endocrine pharmacology, diabetes, thyroid disorders, and reproductive pharmacology. And you can see how he used images and some clever things in his PowerPoint to make it not the usual PowerPoint presentation. So while expert writers can get away with no images, a really great book, you're going to see everything in your mind, especially with fantasy fiction where the things can't exist. You've got things happening in a different galaxy. Their words are so well thought out, the pictures come to mind seamlessly. But when you're presenting to a group, It's much better to use images unless you know you have their complete attention. Third, and this may be something that you might not think about, but you want to create an emotional response. And a lot of times humor is the go-to response where students try to use it and they first start teaching. And what they find out is it works sometimes and it doesn't work others, and then they give up on it. Because, especially comedy, if you're talking about somebody doing stand-up and they're supposed to be funny every single time, that's really tough to do. And so over time, though, you keep those successes that impacted your audience, remove those that didn't. So when a veteran presenter is up there, it seems like they hit all the punchlines and everybody's laughing the whole time. Well, it's just been that he's been doing it so many times. He left those in, the ones that were good in and created an emotional response, and then took out the ones that didn't. And so over time, the presentation became really good. So you can also create an emotional response and connection by telling a story. But note that failure stories where you didn't succeed often go a lot better than those that you did. For example, I took Calculus 1 3 times and Calculus 2 twice. People struggle with math. They'll feel your pain, but they'll also connect with you. Okay. So what I'm saying is that what makes teaching satisfying is playing the detective. How do I connect? How do I show, not tell? How do I elicit an emotional response? These come over time, and finding what struggles students are having and then solving them is gratifying. And then, each day is a new episode. It's what allows teachers to have careers that span decades. But what's most important is that you can now expand your audience, whether through public speaking, continuing ed, books, even standalone courses, as you get really good at this. So the short answer is to how do you make a living with your teaching is to start teaching, find what struggles the class or group has, solve them for a small audience, and if you do it in such a way that the audience and students are so taken by the quality of your work, they might expand your audience to others outside of the classroom. And eventually, maybe that leads to things like those courses and books and things that do have some kind of monetary value.